What's up, savages, and welcome back to another live episode on the show. Today we are in the beautiful Eco Bay Chalet in Muskoka area. You can't see them right now, but we have a whole table of our beautiful guests, our female entrepreneurs that are joining us for a weekend retreat. And we have the incredible Sehr that has joined us to be our guest speaker for the evening and bring her words of wisdom to all of y'all. She has built a massive empire as a top 1% real estate agent in all of Ontario. She's accomplished $1.5 billion in sales, rescued over 400 dogs and cats from Mexico, which we're going to dive into, a huge passion of hers. Came here from Pakistan all by herself and has built an absolute empire. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Sehr to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm so proud to be here with all these wonderful women and to share my story, and I hope everybody can take away something from it.
Amazing. Let's give a formal cheers. I know yours is water, mine's a mocktail. Cheers.
Cheers.
She sat in a car for a couple of hours to be here with us this evening, and she's heading back right after, so what a trooper. Thank you.
I'm a realtor, so I'm used to being in the car all the time.
I think I showed her pictures of the house too, and she was like, yeah, I'll be there.
I'll be there.
Yeah, in real estate for sure. So first of all, would love to start off by sharing, I know you have a massive story, as we all do, but you have done some incredible things and came here by yourself, didn't know anybody. I think you just told me over our appetizer that you still don't have family here. Your family's still back. Is it back in Pakistan?
So now they've actually moved to the UK, but back then they were in Pakistan when I moved here.
Okay. So, and I know it's a long story, but let's start with maybe some bits and pieces of, first of all, what brought you to Canada and led you to get into real estate?
So I basically moved here in 2003. I was doing my undergrad. I had moved here with a very limited budget where I couldn't even complete my tuition unless I worked so hard that I was able to cover half of my schooling for free via scholarship. So that was the first hurdle where I was like, if I don't get a scholarship for my third and fourth semester, I'm not even going to be able to finish my education. Finished my education. I couldn't get a job because I was an international student. Every company was rejecting me and said, you need to showcase that you have a skill that Canadians don't have. Back then, immigration was a very tough gig. So I struggled to find a company who was willing to sponsor me, worked for them for 3 years. They didn't want to pay me the minimum wage that Canada needed, so they would pay me and I would pay them back in cash, living on $1,200 a month for 3 years. And then once I got my immigration, I'm like, great, now the world is my oyster. I'm Canadian. I can stay here and start my life. I went to RBC, got a loan for $80,000 and did my MBA. I graduated in 2008 in the midst of the financial crisis with a degree in finance. Nobody was hiring. I was like, oh my God, I'm $80,000 in debt now. No one is giving me a job. I literally need to do something to change my life. I was struggling for a few years after that. I was doing modeling on the side, getting a few gigs here and there just to make ends meet. And I said to myself, you know what? I didn't come to this great country which has so much opportunity to just do part-time gig modeling. I need to do something that's going to change my life. But I'm already $80,000 in debt, already have an MBA. What am I going to do next? My friends were like, Sehr, we've known you for a while and I don't know what you're good at, but why don't you try real estate? They don't really do anything. They go in and out of houses and they close lights for a living. I'm like, okay. I mean, it was a few $1,000s at the time. The degree didn't take that long. It was a 4 or 5 month process. And I was like, you know what? I can't spend too much money. I'll get my real estate license and I need to make this work. So a few months later, I got my real estate license. I joined a brokerage. This was now 2012. And I selected a brokerage that was close to where I was living. And on the way there, I'm like, you know what? It's a 5-minute drive. And I've seen 7 signs of agents saying they're all number one. So I get to the office on day one and I go in and talk to my broker. And I said, how do I become number one like all these other people? And he said, well, do you have a big network? I'm like, no, not really. I came here as an international student. Most of my friends were international students, and now they've gone back home. He's like, well, do you have any money to advertise? I'm like, nope. I'm $80,000 in debt, no money to advertise. He's like, well, do you have family and cousins and relatives who can give you business? I'm like, nope. They all live back home. He's like, good luck. You need to go out there and meet 5 new people every single day. And start building your database. And I'm thinking to myself, how do I meet 5 new people every single day? So I found out that there's a super glamorous website, actually 2. One was called Craigslist and one was called Kijiji. So every single day I would wake up, and post ads of other people's listings on this website, hoping to find people who want to buy, rent, and sell real estate. And that's how my career got started.
$1.5 billion later. Can we talk about innovative? Can we talk about resilience? Can we talk about a savage mindset of like, I'm going to figure this out and everyone's telling me no and that I can't do this, but I'm going to figure this out? Where do you think that came from? Like that resiliency?
The fact that I had my back up against the wall and I was literally like, I need something that's going to make me some money at this point, because otherwise I have to literally go back home. I can't even afford my rent in Toronto. So, when I was posting ads of other people's listings, it was actually for rentals. So the first year of my business, I posted other people's listings and I did open houses on people's rental listings. Like nobody's ever done that. What started happening was that it was a hot rental market and I was meeting 15 to 20 prospective tenants every single day. So by the end of the year, I had a database of 3,500 people all of a sudden. And granted that they were renters, but you never know anybody's situation. What ended up happening was I learned that a lot of these people were actually, they had a lot of money. They were like business execs who were here from New York for a 1-year contract, people's kids. Like, it's not that they didn't have money to buy, it's just that their life situation at that time didn't present that. So some of these were like execs and so forth. So I actually had a really good database. And at the end of the first year, I was like, I made $100,000. I thought I'm like rolling in the dough at that time because I was used to having nothing. And I was exposed to other agents who I saw were making a lot more than that. But I didn't think anything. I wasn't being greedy at that time. I was like, you know what? I made $100,000 in my first year of real estate. Like, I'm happy because before this, I never made more than, I don't know, $1,200 a month. So at that point, I was doing what I did every day, which was posting other people's listings. And I'm on Kijiji again. And I noticed like there was this one gentleman and he had 5 units in the same building listed, and I just called him up. It's about being innovative and just learning more. I said, hey, man, like, help me out. Tell me, how do you know 5 people who wanted to buy units in this same exact building? It's so weird that you have all the listings on the one same floor. He's like, yeah, because I sell pre-construction. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but that's what I want to do. So can you tell me what that means? I literally did not even have an idea what that meant because I was so new to like the world of real estate. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have a coach. I had nobody helping me. I was like this lone ranger, like diving into Kijiji every morning. And that was my business for that first year. So he said, well, I'm having this event. I'm basically like selling a building before it's built. It's like off floor plans. Do you have anybody? And I said, and I lied to him, and I said, yes, I do. I'm going to be there. And he's like, okay, my event is next weekend, so you can just show up and bring your buyers. I said, well, yeah, I have a lot of buyers, but I just don't know the site. And he's like, don't worry, I know the site really well. We'll go 50-50, and I'm going to help you. You know what? I thought that's great. Like 50-50 is great because, a lot of agents think that I don't want to give up my commission. That's my 4% commission. Why am I giving this guy $10,000? But for me, 50-50 of a deal is better than 100% of zero, Amen. Right? Which was where I was at. So I called up all the tenants in my database and I started telling them that I have this great project. I literally had no idea what I was doing at that time. I had a little script and I just made my phone calls. That next weekend, I had 7 buyers come in purchase and I made over $150,000 in one weekend, which was more than I'd made my entire first year. And that's when I said, you know what, like I'm going to go out there and be the best pre-construction agent that's out there, and there's no turning back from here. I can't go back to 1-bedroom rentals with Bill and Bob and they want to split the living room into 3 bedrooms and rent those out. Like I can't do that anymore. So that's how my journey started. And I quickly used the appointments that this gentleman had done with my buyers to quickly learn how he was running it. And I just latched on. I said, I can do this myself. I don't even need him anymore. After week 2, I was like, I don't need him. I can do it on my own.
Your energy is contagious. Like you can tell that you're very passionate about what you do. And one of the things that we talk a lot on this show about is having a, what I call fire, aim, ready mentality. All the girls have heard me preach about this a million times. And so what I'm hearing you say is very much like, I'm just going to fire. Like, yes, I have buyers. I don't know where they're coming from, but I'm going to figure this out. And in the process, I will become ready. Whereas so many people live their lives the complete other way around and they wait for opportunities to come to them and they never achieve half of the things that you have. So first of all, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
That's beautiful. where I really want to get juicy, because you've done incredible, incredible things, and we could sit here and, rifle off your accomplishments, which are beautiful. Mm-hmm. What I love to talk about on this show is like, if we peel back the layers of that and talk about some of the stories that so many of us can truly relate to, of what actually built that woman, like that strength behind you. Mm-hmm. And so I would love to talk. I know we met during a wonderful panel with our friend John.
Yeah.
And you shared a story. I don't remember all the details, but I remember you shared this story about you hosted something and you thought it was people were going to come and nobody came except for one man. Can you share that story?
Yes.
Because there are these quote unquote failures, which you and I very firmly believe there's no such thing as failure if you never stop. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a really beautiful story.
Yeah, I'd love to share that. So basically, once I started to see this, success in real estate, now keep in mind that in pre-construction, you actually don't earn your commissions for quite a while, because you get half of it like a year after your sale, and the rest once it's built 3 to 4 years out. So like on paper, you've made a bunch of money, but it's going to take some time for that to come in. It's not like you walk into a store and you pay cash and now the store owner has money in their pocket. So, I was like, I want to become the best pre-construction agent. And I did do deals from my database, which was coming from these rental clients. However, I was like, this is not going to make me a millionaire. Like, my goal is to make $1 million my second year of real estate. Because I went from 100, I'm going to 10x this. So what did I do? I started to, the thing is, you don't have to change what others are doing. So I looked at the top 10 to 12 pre-construction agents in the industry. By the way, they were all men. And I said, what are they doing? And how can I just replicate what they're doing? Like, I'm still new to this. I'm very fresh and I want to learn. Obviously, nobody's willing to help me. So I just have to kind of like watch and gauge what I see. So what I saw was that one of them was doing a lot of Google advertising. Some of them were doing flyers. Some of them were doing events, in-person events. I said, you know what? I'm going to copy the guy who's doing in-person events. So I rented at the Park Hyatt Hotel in downtown Toronto in Yorkville. It cost me like 10 grand. I had like food and catering. And I went to one of his events to like snoop, so to speak, so that I could like learn what's going on. And I showed up and there's food and there's all these buyers and they're filling out worksheets and he's like talking to them and they're like, me, I want to buy. And he's like, oh, I only have 10 units. And they're like, no, we need one or our life's going to end. And I was like, that's what's going to happen to me at my first event. So I spent all my money. I had like 10 grand that I put into this project. I was like, oh my God, like $10,000 for one night. It's a lot of investment. I was like, it's going to be fine. It's going to be just like his event. And all these people will show up. And I sent out flyers. I got this room. I got catering. So I get to my event. I had 3 of my friends come with me who are also realtors to support me. I was like, yeah, come see my first new great event. Literally, nobody showed up. I'm sitting there, the event's at 6 o'clock, it's 6:30 now. I'm like, okay, maybe there's like traffic and people are coming, but they're stuck. 6:45, still nobody. By 7, my event's running from 6 to 9. By 7 o'clock, like this one like 80-year-old, Chinese man showed up and he like sat at the back. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, oh my God, there's one client here. Do I do like a full presentation? Like I had like a PowerPoint built and slides and all of that. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to present as if this room is full. It could host maybe 150 people, and it was one person in the room, other than my 3 friends who were also like outside on the cell phones, like literally like don't care, right? He's like, I did my presentation. He did not look up even once from his plate. He's sitting there eating his coconut shrimp. And I'm like, oh my God, this man is just here to like eat his coconut shrimp and go. So I did my presentation. At the end of it, I said, does anybody have any questions? Really, I'm talking to the one person in the room. He literally just got up and left. And I was so deflated at the end of that night. I was like, oh my God, like I just put 10 grand on my credit card and this one man came, ate this coconut shrimp and left, and that's the end of it. I was very, very upset for the next 1 week. And I was like, I'm never going to do an event again. And I was in that deflated mindset of failure because I felt like I failed. It was my first event. And I just felt like maybe this isn't for me. And, this other people are having such great success. In my event, no one came. A week past that one man called me and said, oh, do you remember me? My name is Patrick. And I came to your event. I was like, yes, I remember you. You were at the back eating the coconut shrimp. He came to meet me, and from that day till now, he has single-handedly bought over 60 condos with me and made me millions of dollars in commission. That one man. So the point of the story is you can never think of things that you do as a failure, because sometimes those pivotal moments that seem so disastrous at that time turn into something great. And the point of the story is that you just have to keep going on, because nothing is a failure. You don't know what's going to come out of the situation that you're in and the efforts that you're putting out. You know, a lot of people get very, very upset because they say, oh, I hate being on camera. I don't want to do social media. I hate making reels, but my business coach is forcing me, or my business partner, and everybody's doing it, so I have to. And then, you know, you take up the courage to get dressed up and do your hair and makeup, and you make these great reels, and you're expecting like clients to come out of it, people to comment and say, you go girl, and none of that happens, right? You have 3 likes on it and you feel like, oh my God, I put all this effort, nobody wants it. But the mindset that you have to have is that, you know, when you think about big companies like Coca-Cola, they don't have billboards out there and say that we want people to drive off the highway and go buy a Coke. You have to do branding because it works long term. So these are the small things that I learned while doing my business, that you just keep going even if you don't see the success, because success takes time. You know, you got to keep practicing your craft, getting better at what you do every day, and market the niche that you're in.
Yeah. That is such a beautiful, powerful story. Like, if you're a keynote speaker, that should be in your bank for sure. How many of you would have left the room? Like, how many of you, hands up if you would have delivered the presentation to one person? None of them. I don't know if I would have. Like,
yeah, I gave it my all, guys, as if like the room is full, and I just manifested that, you know, just pretend that everybody's here, they're cheering you on and they're ready to buy after. I gave it my 100% and look what came out of it.
So can we pivot and talk, like, make this transferable to social media? Morgan, we were having this conversation earlier today, right? Like, showing up as if you have 100,000 followers that are watching your live or that are watching your podcast. Lisa just started her wonderful podcast. What's the name of it? Amplified Female Entrepreneur. Shout out. Go give her a listen. And we don't do it because we're like, well, there's 2 people on. That's not a fear of yours, but there's 2 people on, or there's 5 people on. And so they don't go live, or they don't post the content, or whatever it is. Like, can you please just remember that story? Like, how beautiful that is, that it truly does take coming from 5 listeners to 10 listeners to 100 listeners to being able to say and sit on shows and say, I have $1.5 billion in sales behind me because I delivered a presentation to one man in the back who was eating my coconut shrimp. Yeah. And I love that you remember the coconut shrimp. Like, you can tell.
All I remember.
You can tell that
it was the most expensive item on the menu when I was purchasing it, and I was like, he's there eating all of them, you know?
The most expensive. Well, somebody had to eat it, but
it's true.
On that's a beautiful segue. There's 2 things you noted that I want to talk about. One was in business coaches, which I know we chatted about, so I'll bring that back around. The first is you chatted about branding, and I'm a brand agent. I preach it from the rooftops, how important it is to build a personal brand regardless of your business. And so I would love to chat a little bit about, you do things like this all the time. You're creating content all the time. You're in front of the camera. A, were you always good in front of the camera? And if not, how did you become a good speaker and get comfortable in front of the camera? And B, how important is having a strong personal brand been for your business?
So I would say that in the beginning, when I started pre-construction, because I got my license in 2012 and my dive into pre-construction was 2014, it was a time when social media was not as big and relevant as it is today. From actually, to be completely honest, till 2019, I actually had no social media. I wasn't doing any sort of advertising on Instagram and Facebook and so forth. And when I actually got my account and started posting, it changed everything. Like, it was so powerful, because now in our society, nobody's going to work with you. The first thing they're going to do when they meet you is go on your Instagram, go on your Facebook and see what you're doing. So now it's become, I was never comfortable doing videos and reels and doing talks and so
how did you
forth.
become comfortable? For anyone who's like, that's
practicing, by doing it again and again. Every single time you do it, you'll get a little bit more comfortable. And I think now I don't care as much as like, how do I sound? How do I look? Because like, you know, in the beginning when you're new, you're like, oh my God, everyone's going to laugh at me. The only person looking at you that heavily is yourself. I can tell you that. Like, my best friends, like some of them, they were like, oh yeah, I think you posted a video. And I was like, what do you mean you think? Like I spent 3 hours on that, you know? You didn't watch it from start to finish? No, nobody watched it, right? So the only person who's being critical is yourself. Just go out there and shoot it. If you want to make it time efficient, the one little hack that I have, which is what I do, is I try and shoot a bunch of content in one day. So I have pieces to keep posting because I know it's a lot of work, especially for women. We want to look good. We want to have our hair done and makeup done. So just pump out the content in one day and keep reposting it and repurposing it for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks as you need. But it's very important because everybody is now going on social media, especially depending on what kind of business you are. Like I'm in sales, everybody's looking at what am I doing? What has she done? What has she accomplished? Now they don't. It's kind of like your online resume. People don't need to ask you what you've sold. They can see my numbers. I'm posting a reel of me going up on stage and getting award for the top, 5 realtors in Ontario. So now your credibility gets built, so to speak, a little bit, right? So if you're in a business like, let's say makeup, you want to showcase that you're the best makeup artist out there. Like post testimonials, post, videos of your clients, like getting their bridal makeup done and how they look. So I think it's very, very important rather than saying, oh, like here's my, one video that I've made. Like all you want to do is pump out content depending on what your business is.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about a team because we know that it takes an absolute village to grow an empire and whether that, there's so many different roles that depending on the nature of the business are appropriate and not appropriate. And so for a lot of these women, some of them are solopreneurs, some of them have small teams, some of them have like virtual assistants helping them with certain aspects of their business.
Yeah.
How important was a team for you and where do you suggest most of them would start?
So in the beginning, in the first few years, I didn't have a team and I was of this like mindset that like I need to control my business and I can only do the things that I want to get done.
Oh wait, you're a control freak too?
That I want to get things done the way that I want them done and nobody's ever going to be good enough. But as I started to do a lot of volume, I was doing at this point 200 transactions a year on my own with nobody. And I didn't have time to sleep. I didn't have time to eat. I didn't have time for a social life. I said, you know what? I can't live like this. Like in 5 years, I'm going to be like dead on the floor. So I was like, I need to be able to trust other people enough to hand them over parts of my business. The first step was to get an executive assistant. I think that's probably the most important, who can like start handling all the small things like lock boxes, setting up your appointments, replying to like inquiries and so forth. And then from there, I started to scale and bring in team members who can actually make phone calls and fields like, client inquiries that come in from the internet and so forth.
Yeah. And it obviously depends on the nature of the business, right? Like we're all kind of similar styles of business here. Real estate is definitely a little bit different. But I think one of the things that I kind of preach now is if you're making $100,000 a year, you're silly to not have an EA. I'll look every single one of you in the eyes. I say that. If you're making $100,000 a year, you're silly to not have an EA. Because once you have that, Dan Martell talks about being able to buy back your time. Yeah. And so you have that money, and in order to have that money make you more money, you invested in people who can take things off of your plate that are taking up your time from you making more money. And so that's something that has just radically changed my life and being able to outsource and learn the areas that I needed to delegate and the areas that were my zone of genius that I really wanted to stay in and excel in.
Yeah, like for a lot of agents, they want to do all their own marketing. That one of the first things that I did was hire somebody who's doing all my Google ads for me, making my mailers for me. And that really freed up a lot more time. And I'm not like a graphic expert or a design expert at any level. So not only was the quality of work, it didn't cost that much. And it really elevated my business and allowed me to do things to help me grow.
Yeah. So you're super busy. You're doing a majillion things all at once.
Yeah.
A lot of the women here are moms, right? And we're all doing a bunch of things. You are a fur baby mom, and you also have 400 dogs and cats that you've rescued now from Mexico. Is that correct? Okay.
So for me, like that's my real passion. My passion is to help animals and give them homes and so forth. But I also knew that that's not going to make me money. So for me, it was very important to be successful in real estate so I can actually do what I'm really passionate about, which is save dogs, get them surgeries, get them treatment, bring them back. And that's really fueled, like that's what drives me to be successful every single day. And in the past 3 years, I do a Christmas charity event in villages in Mexico for the community to come who can't afford spay and neuter services or vet care for their animals to get their animals basically spayed and neutered for free. So every single year it's been about 150 animals, and I've also brought back about 17 of them and found them homes here.
That's amazing.
So want to grow that bigger and bigger every year.
Yeah. And you've got Pablo
Pablo as well.
Pablo and Beep.
And Beep.
Your cat's name is Beep.
Yeah. Adopted a dog from Mexico, one of the ones that I was fostering.
Yeah.
So.
I love it. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, animals obviously play a very special role. Everyone knows I have my 2 French bulldogs and they play a very special role for me. I would love to talk a little bit about, obviously that's a passion of yours. You spend time there, you're building an empire. You can tell you're super driven and you're very focused on it. What are some things that you do in the downtime? Like, how do you find the balance between being on, I'm driven, I'm like, driven for all of this success, but like, I'm also a human being who needs to have a life, who needs to hang out with friends, who's probably growing relationships. So like, what does that balance look like for you?
So I think sticking to a very strict schedule is important to me. I wake up early every single day and I try and sleep early every single day. And then, I have my morning time, which is prospecting. I have the afternoons where it's like something else. And then I have days in the week where I'm doing my charity stuff. So it's all very like strict and regimented. So, if I have clients contacting me now, I've built a team where it's like, they're going to handle that. So unless it's like really urgent, I'm not the first person of contact anymore, and I've had to put those systems in place so I can actually have that balance. So I think if somebody has kids and stuff, they need to have those types of systems as well, where it's like, 9 to 12 is X time, or dropping kids to school and picking them up at 3:30 or 4, or however that works, and fitting that into a schedule and kind of keeping it very regimented is important for success.
So you're a structured girl.
Very structured.
Structured. Got it.
Yeah.
I'm not so structured anymore. I used to be super structured. Now I'm a little bit more like, God's plan, not mine.
I see.
Yeah. I would love to talk a little bit about your inner circle and the people that are closest to you. I preach about this a lot. I talk about this a lot. It's probably one of our top downloaded episodes on this podcast. Mm-hmm. And I think all of the women here can probably attest to how important who they've surrounded themselves with have been in their career and in their personal development journey. Hence why they are all here, like why they're investing to be around other driven, successful, heart-led female entrepreneurs. And so what is that process like for you? Like, do you have a lot of friends or do you have a small circle? And how did you choose who to surround yourself with coming here and not knowing a lot of real estate agents and being like, that's my goal, my eyes are set on that? Mm-hmm. How important was cultivating a strong inner circle for your success?
I would say that it happened very organically. So for me, when I was at my brokerage, I was meeting, realtors who are not so successful. And that's why in my first year, I was doing rentals. And, when I made $100,000, they're like, oh my God, like I was the inspiration that they were looking up to. And it's because they were making 50. So if I'm making 100, they're like, oh my God, you're a superstar. But what started happening when I got into pre-construction, it's a very tight-knit circle. And there's only maybe 50 realtors in all of Toronto who do pre-construction and specialize in. And now I was in that circle. So as I started to hang out with them, these are people who are making millions of dollars a year. So my vision, that's what made my vision go from 100 to 1 million within 1 year.
Right.
Because a regular agent or somebody in a business who's new, they can't even fathom making $1 million in the first 2 years. The number is just so far out from there that it's out of the realm of their imagination. But I actually believe that, listen, there's nothing in these people sitting here that I can do just as well. Like, it's not rocket science to learn a project and then learn how they market it and learn how to speak. So I didn't want to give myself that 3-year time frame or 5-year time frame to be successful. So now I need to make this happen now. I already struggled for the last 10 years, doing other things. So this is it. Yeah. So surrounding myself with those people and learning from them and being around them in those same rooms has helped a lot. And now with the pre-construction industry, the way the builders work is, if you achieve a certain amount of sales, they actually take you away on these luxury vacations, and it's the top 10 agents. So I've been very blessed because I've been going on a lot of these vacations every single year, and it's again surrounding myself like this room, but with other top agents who are doing even triple my volume. So I'm always learning and feeding into that energy, taking little ideas like, what are you doing in a down market? What are you doing? So I've been very blessed because those are my friends now. Because, through the interactions of traveling together through work and being in the same projects, like we've all become friends, and it's been very powerful.
Yeah.
The 6 people you surround yourself with the most, that's the income you're going to make. So if they're making 50, you're making 50. They're making $1 million. and you're making 100, you're going to level up and you're going to say, you know what, I can get there too. And you'll want to get there because you'll want to be able to match your circle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I preach this from the rooftops. Like I can't stress how important it is and how much it's transformed my journey.
Yeah.
And I say this all the time, like I intentionally wanted to be a small fish in a big pond all the time. Mm-hmm. And the second I felt like I had grown through and learned and I was at the top, I'm like, okay, I've outgrown this pond. It's now time to find a new pond. Like I need a new mentor. I need a new group of friends. And, I needed to be in something again that really challenged me because that's where the growth was. And I felt like I had reached the top of something. So yeah, just like double tapping and echoing on that so loudly for anyone that's listening that kind of feels stuck. It's like find a room where you feel uncomfortable, where you know that there's growth and opportunity waiting for you.
Yeah, and success is not a destination, it's a journey. Like I'm not going to go out there tomorrow and say, okay, I've sold this building, that's done, I'm successful. No, unless I physically plan to retire tomorrow, I'm going to have to wake up the next day and do the same thing over and over again. Yeah. So it's like about enjoying that process as well, right? And finding that growth through those failures and overcoming those and accepting that as an entrepreneur, your job is going to lead you to fail every single day, but look at those failures as a stepping stone to success, because you cannot get into entrepreneurship and think that it's all going to be like fairies and daisies. Like entrepreneurship is very, very tough. And you're going to fail every single day. But if you have that mindset, then when it does happen, you're not going to be depressed about it, let down, demotivated. You're going to still wake up excited for every single Monday because you're like, my job as an entrepreneur is to get punched in the face. And if I can avoid that today, that's a win. And anything above that is a bonus. So if you have that mindset, you're not upset when something happens. You're like, that's my job. So think of your wins as your bonus and the fact that like the punches in the face are the job, because that's how you make those millions, right? So if I wanted to make 100, sure, there's no problems. Nobody cares about me. Like now when I'm reaching the other levels of money, like I have to accept those levels of problems as well. You can't say I want to make $1 million or $2 million a year, but I don't want any problems. That doesn't exist. Everybody has problems. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to say I want to 10x my income, be willing to 10x the problems that come along with that. And just enjoy that journey for what it is.
Amen. You need to like quote that. Yeah, it's powerful, really. Every billionaire I've ever met in my life, I always ask them like, what's the key? What's the key? If there's one piece of advice, right? Like, there's not many. And they always say, fail fast. Yeah. Fail fast, fall down fast. Don't be scared of it. Don't run away from it. Be willing to fall down fast, because the faster you fall down, the faster you're going to get back up and you're going to figure it out. And most people are so scared of the failure and of the fall that they never even try. And that's what separates, those that can reach that level and the rest of them who don't. So
yeah, like literally just embrace pressure, because pressure is the most dynamic tool that can make things happen. Pressure is what can make pipes burst, and pressure creates the most beautiful things in the world, which is diamonds. So if you take the pressure and you turn it around and use it as fuel to drive your business forward, you will be successful.
Yeah. One thing that just came up, I'm not sure if you have any guidance or advice around this. I think it's incredibly important in the journey to understand when a journey is over. Like to understand when a season is over, a relationship is over, a chapter is over. I just left my salon, which was my first big business. And that was really hard. Like that was really hard to do. But every fiber of my being knew that it was done and so ready for the next chapter and what's waiting to come. And so any guidance or advice you have to maybe these ladies or anyone who listens to this who's like, maybe, there's a couple I know that are wanting to step into new ventures, that are wanting to step into new chapters and kind of scared of closing that old identity. And maybe you don't have a big story around that. Maybe you do. But even if it's like a deal or a client or someone that you knew, I got to close that door so that I can make room and space for something bigger. Do you have any guidance or advice around that?
Well, I mean, it happened to me after I did my MBA. I had an MBA in finance. My parents were like, you're going to be an investment banker. And that's what, people with finance do. And I had to literally turn around and say, you know what, this isn't working for me. I'm not getting a job in this industry. I've been trying for 2 years at that point and I kept failing. Nobody's hiring. It's the middle of the financial crisis. I have no experience. So that door had to close and I had to become a realtor. And my parents at that time were like Googling like average salary of a realtor. And they're like, do you know that in Ontario, 30,000 realtors last year did 0 sales? And I'm like, yeah. They're like only 10% of the agents make 95% 95% of the money. I said, yeah, I'm going to be that 10%. So don't think of it like you're going to step into a new chapter and all the people who are failing think like, I'm going to step into this chapter and there's room out there for me. Like you have to have an abundance mindset, because the minute that you go into a scarcity mindset, you've already failed inside, and that energy is going to portray out into the world, and you're not going to be able to get that back. So think of it like there's so many clients out there. If I'm a makeup artist, how can I just, maybe market myself a little bit differently and try and get those clients?
How do you help yourself, if we talk like energetically or from a mindset perspective, how do you help yourself stay in a abundance mindset? It's so easy to fall into scarcity. Like, what are some strategies that you have that help you stay in abundance thinking?
Well, I just think that, there's so much growth in terms of like listening to podcasts. I have a business coach. I would definitely recommend everybody who's out there, to get a business coach. So I've had one since day one of my real estate career. Even when I didn't have money, I invested $1,400 a month into coaching. So being able to have somebody to bounce ideas off, who can keep you going, like that really helped me as well. And like, things like listening to podcasts of other people, and those are the strategies I would say.
Yeah. How did you find your coach? I know yours was real estate specific.
Mine was real estate specific.
So what advice do you have to someone who's listening to this who maybe wants to, maybe it's not even business coaching, maybe it's whatever it is that they're trying to learn. I think that truly success leaves clues. You should find someone who has done the thing that you want to do and pay them to give you their information.
Yes.
What advice do you have for someone who's trying to find someone to help them level up?
I would say definitely invest in a coach, but let's say that you say that I can't afford a coach. You know what? Like, knock on somebody's door who's in the industry that you're in and say, hey, are you willing to mentor me? I'm willing to work for free. Like, I've had people who've interned for me for 3 to 4 months, and they literally have told me that they've learned more in 4 months than they would have like in the last 3 years on their own. So if you don't want to go the coaching route, coaching doesn't have to mean, a certain type where you log into a Zoom call once a week. It could be anything. It could be mentorship in the industry where you shadow somebody. Maybe you're getting them coffee every single day, doing photocopies. It could be anything, but just be around that energy where you can learn from, whether that's a business coach or somebody in your industry who you look up to. So
amazing.
That's what I would say.
What are you scared of? What are some of your fears? You've worked through a lot. You're incredibly powerful. What still kind of shakes you, or what still kind of, I still have them. So what still kind of is in the way or gives you the racing heart and the sweaty palms? Like any fears that you have?
It's not really fears. I would say that obviously even within my industry, it's very important that we learn to like pivot all the time. And sometimes there's fear in that because it's new things that you have to learn, new things that the team has to like now overcome. But I think of every fear as like another challenge where you just need to get through it, and the success is right on the other side. It's like a winding staircase where like you don't know how far you are from the top. You just have to keep going and you can overcome it, because you might be just that one little step away from being at the top. You just can't see it because it's winding up.
Yeah.
So I think of fear as just another challenge as part of the journey of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Travel's a really big part of your life. Where are you
Yes.
excited to travel to next?
I actually just got back from Miami, so I'm launching a new condo project there. And then in 2 weeks, I'll leave for Thailand. So I'm going on another top producer trip with actually 40 other top agents for that developer. So it'll be a really good networking opportunity, see what they're doing in their business right now, and enjoying like a beautiful country.
So we just caught you while you were home.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about for fun? Travel. Those are both business trips. Where are you traveling for fun?
So for fun, I would say maybe Europe in the summer, because my parents live in the UK, so I try and do like a Europe trip.
Yeah.
So I haven't planned anything yet, but it'll definitely be in the cards.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to open it up for questions in just a moment, ladies, if you want to get ready and ask your questions. But is there anything else that you would like to leave our audience with? Any last words of wisdom, or like your motto, or anything else that you feel like you'd really like to share with them?
I would say maybe like in your business, like just realize that your whole job is to generate business every single day. So don't get caught up in the monotony of small things. Like just wake up and say, this is what I got to do every day, is find new clients. So in my business specifically, a lot of agents say, oh, I'm busy. What are they busy doing? They're busy dropping checks or lockbox and like non-income generating activities. Just stay super focused as an entrepreneur. It's like, what are the income generating activities that I can do every single day, because I have limited hours, because I have kids to feed and people to drop to school and so forth. What can I do to generate income, and take it from there?
Amazing. All right, let's turn it over to the ladies. Toria, she's going to kick us off?
Well, first of all, you were both so inspiring. It was so great to hear your story. You talked a little bit about getting in rooms with millionaires and surrounding yourself with next level people. And I'm curious if you have experienced limiting beliefs or comparison when you were stepping into those rooms. And if so, how did you overcome that?
Such a beautiful question. I'll let you start.
I actually had no limiting belief because I believed that like I can do anything that these men that I was seeing could do. So because I believed so strongly in myself and my capabilities, I said, you know what? I have an MBA degree, like from the Schulich School of Business. I came to Canada by myself. I slugged it out in a apartment for $300 a month, and I've survived like a lot of hardship. There's nothing that can stop me from saying that I'm going to achieve the same success as these people have. So I think it's just so important to believe that you can do it to actually do it. If you tell yourself that I can make $1 million in my business this year, which means I have to make X amount monthly and this is my goal of sales, you have to go backward and like goal track, because if you start saying like I don't deserve to talk to this person, they're better than me because they make more money than me. No, you can't have that mindset. Like, get rid of it.
I'm going to take a different approach because I have them. I definitely have them every single time I do something that's different or uncomfortable or new, stepping on a new stage or any new room, right? Where you're trying to level up and you feel like I'm stuck here. We're stuck on the dress. You feel like you quote unquote don't belong, right? You haven't accomplished that yet. She has a deep belief and a deep knowing that she belongs there, which is freaking powerful and beautiful. I do too, but you're still scared. Like you're still scared stepping into rooms with bigger players. And so for me, it's okay. The fear is there. I just acknowledge that all of these people have done phenomenal things and I haven't yet. That doesn't mean I can't, and that doesn't mean I won't. And simply by me taking one step after the other, I will become this type of person. I'm also a huge introvert. And so even taking the energy to step into those rooms, it's like, okay, I can do this. I just have to have a couple conversations, just smile and just like, be on and figure it out and make these connections. And those have always turned into other relationships that have turned into other opportunities. And you guys know a lot of the big, beautiful things that have come into my life that have come from putting fear in the passenger seat. You can come along for this journey with me. I know you're going to be there. I know you're going to be telling me in the back of my head I shouldn't be here, but I'm going to do it anyways. So hopefully that's helpful.
And I'm going to just share one more quick story. So like when I said I just came back from Miami and I was launching a project there, this project is by an entrepreneur called Adam Newman. He's the founder of WeWork, the office space WeWork. I don't know, some of you might have heard of it. They built that into a $47 billion empire. And he basically talks about how he got rejected for years and years and years in different businesses. Like he was trying to sell children's clothing with knee pads and people were kicking him out of the room. And when I spoke to him, he's worth $2.2 billion. It was the first time last week that I met a billionaire, not a millionaire. There's lots of millionaires. Billionaires, it was my first. I didn't feel scared. And the reason was like, I heard that he had those same exact fears that you're thinking just 5 years before that, right? They were getting kicked out of the same rooms, being said no to. They were the ones who were like insecure, and they just persevered, and now they've become who they are today. So that could just be you. It's just going to take you those 5 years to get there. Yeah. All those people in the room were in your spot just recently. Yeah. So think of it like that. They weren't born rich and successful. Everybody had to like earn it, right? Yeah. So that's just you a few years in.
Everyone experiences that at the beginning, for sure. There's a book, I think it's called Worth It. I think that's what it's called. Jamie Lee Curma. If any of you know her story, do you know her story?
No.
Yeah. Long story short, was it 3 billion or 8 billion or something ridiculous? She sold. What's the name of that makeup company? Thank you. 1 billion. And what's the name of the thank you. It Cosmetics. She ended up selling it for. Long story short, door after door after door after door after door slammed in her face. She's a little bit overweight. You don't belong here. You'll never sell this, and you'll never be successful in the makeup industry. She was just told everything under like a bajillion doors were slammed in her face. She went down to like 2 pennies in her bank account, and then just kept on believing in herself and getting herself in the right rooms until eventually she was worth it. And now she's a massive, massive success. It's a very inspiring book and story. So highly suggest that. What else? Of course. Mm-hmm. What else have we got?
One, you sound like you're from a very traditional family where your parents are like go to college, get a degree with a 401k. Like,
Oh, no. My parents were like, once you hit 18, they're like saying, would you like to marry this person or would you like to marry that person? I had to like fight to go to college.
okay.
So it was even
Okay.
worse than that.
Okay.
But yes, very traditional.
How did you, because you have such a strong mindset, how the fuck did you even come up with that mindset? Like, did you do therapy? Did you do like, personal
Give me the goods.
development? Did you, because you have such a wonderful, like,
Intensity.
oh my God, intense. Like,
Yeah.
I love it.
So I think for me, what had happened was I was sharing this with Cassandra earlier. I was very privileged growing up. My parents were very wealthy when I was in my teenage years. They were able to, once I could convince them to send me to the US initially to study, they could afford, it was $50,000 a year. 2 years in, my dad lost his business. He lost all his money. So I went from being like a rich spoiled kid to literally being told that you're on your own in life, like going forward. And it was a very big shock to me because I had everything that I'd ever known taken away from me. Because if you grow up being kind of poor, then you're kind of like used to it already and it's like whatever. I grew up the opposite where they're like, oh, now you're going to live for $300 a month in Keel and Finch and rent a room because that's all I could afford. A Happy Meal was expensive to me. I couldn't upsize my fries. That's how poor I was. And it was such a big shock to the system because that's not what I was used to. Like back in Pakistan, I would ring a bell in my room and somebody would come running giving me fresh water, right? So because I went through that, like it was pretty traumatic experience, I was like, you know what? I need to build that old lifestyle of mine back on my own. There's nobody who's going to help me anymore. But I need to get back there because I knew what the good life was. And I was like, I need to, even if it takes me 5 years, 6 years, 10 years to get there, I am going to get there on my own. And now I support my parents. So it's like reverse. So it's, it feels good.
That's where the grit came from. That's where it came from. Having it all and losing it all and
Yeah.
rebuilding it yourself.
Basically just losing it all, yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So I am one of the ones that is embarking on a very large investment and project. And it is getting in those rooms with people who have a lot more zeros behind their names than I do. Any advice for someone like myself who really has not a lot of zeros behind their name coming into the table?
So have you put together like a really good business plan and perfected your pitch?
I'm currently working on it through a cohort.
So that's what I would say, because if you make that so strong and you believe that it's like the best plan in the entire world, you're going to make it happen. Like the same gentleman I was talking about, Adam Newman, like if you watch his documentary, it's called WeWork, it's the exact same thing. He's like this guy who has no money and he's pitching the WeWork office space idea to all these rich investors, whereas he has nothing. And it's like really like perfecting that business plan and saying, why is this going to work, and really believing in it, having the stats that back it up as to if they don't take this, like they're the stupid ones. And that's basically how I pitch my pre-construction business every single day. Like I'm out there talking to investors all day long, and I have to show them the value in it, because just because they have money doesn't mean they're just ready to give it all to me and buy. So it's every single day also meeting people and showcasing why is this a good investment for them and how is this going to benefit their lives. And that just has to be super strong, because if you're really good at that and confident, not nervous and like, oh, I can't, practice in front of the mirror every single day. That's what I would say. You should be able to just roll it off your tongue and like really believe in it.
How do you find those people? Because to me, that I currently feel that will not be a problem. But my limiting belief is finding those investors, like literally getting in a
Where are they?
elevator with a millionaire or a billionaire. Where are they? Yes.
Going to seminars, going to talks, coming to things like this where you can meet, you never know who you're going to meet. Like maybe she's an inspiring entrepreneur, but maybe she knows somebody else who's done something in the same realm of business that you have. So really like zoning in on those networking opportunities. And when you come here, don't just know 3 people, know everything about everybody, because you don't know who can introduce you to somebody else in a different genre of their life. Just because that person could be beneficial in maybe the makeup business doesn't mean that it doesn't translate into the business that you're doing. So I would say like really you have to network and get that out there. And then again, like social media and going to these networking events as well. There's a lot of networking. Are you from Toronto or no? Okay, so I mean, I'm not sure, but I'm guessing it's the same thing where there's a lot of like networking and investment events and so forth there. So just putting yourself out there.
I'm going to bring kind of back the piece that she talked about at the beginning, like the Kijiji ads, like bring it. I'm not telling you to go on Kijiji to find millionaires. Let me just correct myself there.
Even though I do find buyers I found a lot of buyers on Kijiji. But to your point, so I now, for my investment seminars, because I sell pre-construction, I'm heavy into Google advertising. So I would say maybe 40% of my business is repeat and referral and people I know. 60% of my business every year is from people who I've never met. It's all from advertising. So I spend on advertising because I believe that I can make that return. The other problem with entrepreneurs is they don't want to spend any money. So one thing that I did very early on was I said that, you know what, everything that I'm going to make, I'm going to put it back into my business. My first 40,000 I made, I pumped it right back into advertising. Then that 40,000 made me $1 million the next year. Because if I just said, oh my God, this is my last 40 and I need to keep it in case nothing happens for me, I'd be stuck in the same position the next year. So taking those risks and maybe doing some advertising in your area of like your event and so forth, putting it out there.
So I wasn't talking about advertising. I was talking about the mindset of what she was talking about by putting out those ads on Kijiji. For you, the first thing is people will know you by the message that you leave them with. And so if you enter a room, I'm a makeup artist and I own a beauty salon, that's what they're going to remember you by. But if you enter a room, I own a wellness business, I'm actually looking for investors, that's a whole different conversation that gets opened up and people will remember you by that. And so I mean, it takes time to go to events and meet all of these people. So I gave you the LinkedIn strategy, of course. I think the same strategy in business when we're finding our clients is figuring out, well, where do those type of people spend their time and how do I get myself into those rooms? And telling, like, every woman at this table now knows that you're looking for investors. And so maybe in a conversation that they're having, they overhear something and it's like, oh, you know what? I actually know a woman, Morgan, let me connect you. She's looking for investors. And so that's how I've met a lot of successful and people in my life is by just talking about and literally manifesting. My two best friends in the back will tell you, I tell them I'm going to do something. I'm going to find somebody. And they're like, how does this stuff fall in your lap? I'm like, it doesn't fall in my lap. I say it's going to fall in my lap. So you're looking for investors. We'll put that out into the universe. My friend is looking, where's the camera? My friend is looking for investors. If anybody is looking to invest into her business, and find being in the right room. So like LinkedIn for sure is going to be a good strategy for you. And anytime you find people that could have that money, it's like, hey, just so you know, maybe it's not you, but I'm looking and I want to put that out there that I'm looking.
And dialing in on that business plan for sure, you know?
Yeah, she's working on that. It's more just wanting to make sure she gets in front of them to show them the business plan. Yeah. You're welcome. Any other questions before we wrap things up? Chantel?
My question for you is, how do you bounce back from rejection? So if you go and you like pitch your offer to someone and you're getting no after no after no, how do you bounce back from that? Like, I am well aware that like I'm going to be told no many times, but it defeats me and it makes me feel really small and really little, and it does make me kind of want to run in the other direction and be like, maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. Maybe this isn't my path. But deep down, I know it is. But how do you kind of bounce back from that and shift your mindset and keep it on the right path?
I would say that I get rejected still to this day many, many, many times a day. So in my business, the core of our business is actually cold calling and calling leads. So we're getting hung up on, I would say out of every 100 calls, like rejected by 99% of those people. So it's really about thinking in the mindset that like you don't care about the 99 people who said no. You're just looking for that one person who's willing to set an appointment with you and say yes. So that conversion rate, you have to accept that most of it will be failure and will be no's, and knowing that, okay, today I'm going to call 100 people and 99% are going to hang up, tell me I'm stupid, tell me they're not interested, whatever it is, you know? And you can't take it personally, the rejection. Like they might be going through a divorce and just like got a plate broken in the background, and you're calling them, hi, I'm calling from where, like they don't want to talk. So don't take the rejection personally, and just know that it's just not for them at that stage, and just keep going. Like you keep making
going.
your calls.
Okay.
There's three things I'm going to say to this. The first you're going to resonate with so deeply is rejection is actually God's protection. So if we can frame it that way, I know that'll resonate with you really well. Maybe not with others, but I know it will for you. The second is imagine your partner right now. You wouldn't be the woman that you are today if you hadn't gone through the no's, the people who broke up with you, the everything that you went through to teach you how to be the woman that you are so that you can show up so wonderfully in the relationship that you're in now. And the last is, if I told you that on your 1 millionth try, you were going to become a billionaire, but you had to fail that many times to get there, would you still do it? And so if you can just kind of let those replay in your head, that's what helps me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah, that was so great.
Anything else that you would like to share before you wrap it up?
I think we've covered it.
We're
covered
good.
it all.
Beautiful. Okay. Thank you, friends, for joining us this evening. That is all that we have for you. Thank you, Sahar, for driving all of this way.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank
I
you
really
for
enjoyed being here.
Thank you for stealing my dress. I'm just kidding. We didn't
Great minds
actually
think alike.
We didn't actually plan this. She's like, I have a really fancy gown. I was like, me too. And then we walk out. I'm like, yours looks like mine. That's awesome. This will be out shortly. Thank you so much. We hope that you enjoy, and we'll see you next time.